Hello, welcome to Marriage Minutes at His Pace. And today, Mark and I are going to discuss what happens when time's up. How do you know when it is time to move on? Now, I'm going to leave that topic very open because I'm not necessarily talking about marriage,
I'm not
but
frozen.
I am talking about how do you know as a believer when it is time to move from something, be it a job, be it a church, be it a friendship, be it a marriage, be it whatever. Time's up. How do you know? And what I'm saying is, it is time for you to leave. You have to have some concrete evidence that it's time for you to leave something. How do you know as a believer that it's time?
I think one of the key components you have to ask yourself if you're doing more murmuring and complaining, in which you're not yourself, but you're complaining and murmuring, uh, I think you need to kind of center yourself and really uh, ask God, you know, do I need to make a change or do I need to stop murmuring and complaining? You know, which is two different things. And so I know when I've made moves, um, most of the time it was a lot of murmuring and complaining on my part. Um, and then just realizing, okay, or if you kind of just feel like you have played as much as you can play in junior varsity and it's time to, if you have maximized everything you can on junior varsity and it's time to get on the varsity squad, um, you kind of sense those things. I think it makes me even think about before you get married, I know for me, there was just a point where it's just like, okay, what else am I doing with singleness? I think I had done everything
Oh, really?
yeah, really. And so for me, it was just like, okay, what's the next step? What's next? And not necessarily have to be marriage, but you just ask yourself, okay, what's next? And so I think that's the question that you have to ask yourself. Stay within yourself. When you're out of character, maybe you need to really take assessment of where you are and what you're doing that has you out of character.
Okay, so I heard you say, I need some clarity on this first part. Are you saying that you need to evaluate whether your time is up when you find yourself in a place of murmuring?
Yes.
Okay, so now we can kind of equate that biblically to the Egyptians were, I mean, to the Hebrews were just constantly
Yes.
murmuring like we got to get out of here, we got to get out of here. Okay, so what you're saying, right, and how you're perceiving where you are it could be a sign.
Mm-hmm.
I also heard you say that you feel like maybe a level of maturity have you've risen to a level of maturity. You've done all you could do at that place.
Yes.
You've exceeded or excelled every level that you can do. There's no more growth potential
Yeah, you
there.
you are the most mature, experienced junior associate
Gotcha.
within the company.
And then you said something else and I lost
I don't know.
it. Okay. So, all right. So those are some practical things to me. I want to know from a believer's perspective, though, those are practical things. Like you could check off and say, hey, my resume or my CV grew this much in this many years, and I am very dissatisfied with how things are going. I'm going to add on to that. And you have done the things that you feel you could do
Mm-hmm.
to make or evoke change,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because it's one thing to murmur and complain, and then if you just pick up and leave, then the problem still exists unless they went with you. But which is a possibility.
Yeah.
But I also think that it's important for us to evaluate along with the murmur and complaining is have I done anything to be change? Have I done anything to cause or evoke change? And if I have and things are still bad, then to me, now this is wow. I need to think about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, from a biblical perspective, though, I think that people get stuck in what is God telling me to do? and how is God telling me to move. And I do think that you have to be prayerful. I think you have to be in a place of discipline in your spiritual walk before you can discern what God is telling you, because he can tell you some tricky, his messages are not always clear.
Yes.
I'm going to say it like that. I think his plan is clear for him, but it's not always clear to us. And so for me, I'll tell you all something that I said, and I think it's funny, but it's the truth. So Mark and I were on our wedding day. I was in the bathroom waiting to come outside. And I had gotten to a point in my prayer life where I was like, God, if this is not you, make it clear and plain. And if you don't, I'm going to keep rolling with it. So I was like, God, this ain't a bad on you. I was like, God, if this is not who I'm supposed to marry, please break my leg, do something, make this clear and plain before I walk down this aisle and make the biggest mistake of my life. Now, that might sound funny to you, but what that type of faith does for God is it tells him that you are freely being obedient and trying to follow his path. Now it could have still ended up crazy for me, but I my point behind that is I think you also have to put a fleece out there at wherever you're going. God, show me the way, make it clear and plain through fasting and prayer or getting wise counsel. Is this time to move or not? That was my whole point.
I think we have to understand that there's seasons to everything. And so,
Jesus, Jamie.
absolutely.
Mm.
And sometimes I don't think God always wants us to be in places of comfort because usually there's no growth when you're comfortable.
Mm.
And so just like an eagle in her nest, you know, she can only feed them so long, and then she gonna say, "All right, let's go practice fly."
Mm.
And the practice fly ain't when you ready. The practice fly is I'm throwing you out the nest so that I can see you utilize the gifts and skills that I've given you. And so sometimes, that comfort level is could be a sense that I need to change. When you are getting more irritable or whatever the case may be, when you're agitated and uncomfortable, that could be God's prompting that a change is necessary, or you just need to be take an assessment of where you are and what's being triggered or what's being brought to the surface, so to speak, in terms of just being uncomfortable.
Yeah, yeah. And so I'll end this with kind of talking, unless Mark has something else to say, but and kind of talking about some of the one of the things that I say to married ladies when I am counseling them. I'll say it to a man too. Listen, Mark nor I nor any counselor can tell you when it's time to leave your relationship. That is a question that you have to answer for yourself. Okay. And that has to be a question that you and God partner on. Nobody living on the outside of your relationship can make that determination for you. However, this is what I'm going to tell you when I say that you from a biblical perspective, separation and divorce come with the covering, or I'll say protection of God in some ways, for only two reasons, and that would be adultery and abandonment. So if you cannot line up under those two things for your argument about parting from someone, then I caution you on how, not that God doesn't love you, not that he's not going to walk with you, but he gives us certain plans to walk out for protection. And so sometimes we're going to get where we're going, but it may take us a little longer to get there because we're doing things kind of out of his order. So I always tell people this. Nobody can tell you whether you can stay or whether you need to stay or go in a relationship, but if you're going to stay, you've got to partner with God to figure out how to stay in that thing. And if you're going to leave, you've got to partner with God to figure out how to lead that thing gracefully. Because God forbid, if Mark, this will never happen because we have. I'm gonna tell you this. I'm gonna say never, but I'm going. He tried to leave. I'm going. But my point is, God forbid something happened to us. I still think this needs to be good because we brought a child into this world that did not have anything to do with us messing up.
Yeah.
We owe it to her to still co parent well.
Yes.
So I don't know if I said a whole lot of stuff, but I just want you to know that there is a process for knowing when the time is up. And God will give you clear directions through counsel, through prayer, through discernment, through discipline on what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, I think you said it all. And just to close, I would say nobody knows the process to get to the finish in which God has for a marriage. And so the end result is the end result till death do us part. Some marriages have to go through different pathways to get to that. And who knows if that to death do us part is on the other side of this very tough period that relationships go through. Uh, and it's almost you were just so close to the promised land, but we didn't stand firm. And I think, we faint not, and so be encouraged if that's, and definitely no matter what you do, God is always in control. And so you have to stay close to him, with him, and he will navigate it. So
Time's up.
be well, be blessed.